Hello and welcome to Energy Insider. We're trying something new today. I've been sort of experimenting with various formats, and I'm trying a sort of YouTube video format. Let me know what you think. And essentially, what I'm trying to do is provide an overview of the goings on in the last week in the energy, utilities, and renewables sort of industry. So I thought I'll give a few sort of stories. Obviously, the big story of what is now last month, and exactly a month ago, is that Ofgem ordered four suppliers to pay their renewables obligation by the 31st of October. On the day of recording, which is Friday the 1st of November, I thought it'd be wise to look at where we are. So the four suppliers in question are Delta Gas, G Energy, Robin Hood Energy, and Toto Energy. So let's start with some good news. Delta Energy. I think Delta Energy has settled all their renewable obligations, basically based on this notice of decision not to make final order by Ofgem, which was issued on the 29th. So it stated that on the 24th of October, Delta Gas and Power paid the outstanding renewable obligation balance. Therefore, the authority is satisfied that Delta Gas and Power is no longer in contravention of or likely to contravene the renewables obligation order. And the authority has decided not to proceed with issuing a final order, which is sort of good news for Delta Gas and Electricity. The second one then is unfortunately not a good news story, and that is Toto Energy. Unfortunately, Toto has ceased trading. This is even more frustrating as Toto Energy had only just taken on new customers from Solarplicity about 2 months ago. So yeah, not good news. It's had a significant amount of customers, 134,000 domestic customers. So not good news. The silver lining is that EDF will take on Toto Energy's customers. So all 134,000 customers will move over to EDF. And EDF has also made a statement that it will honour any outstanding credit balances, including money owed to both existing and former customers of the bust supplier, as it states here in City AM. So it's that's sort of a silver lining, I suppose. Unfortunately, it must be terribly frustrating for customers of Solarplicity who will move to Toto Energy and now have to move again. I can imagine it must be a bit of an administrative nightmare for those customers, but at least they have continuous energy supply, which is, I suppose, a silver lining. The other good news then is Robin Hood Energy. They've had they can continue operating after paying their £9.5 million bill Ofgem has confirmed. So Robin Hood Energy are okay to continue, which is good news. They've done so after receiving a loan from the City Council to pay the renewables obligation to Ofgem. So I suppose that's good news. Obviously, slightly worrying that it's a loan, but it's good news that a supplier with the size of Robin Hood is able to continue, which is good news. I couldn't see any update on the final supplier, which is G Energy. I noted that Ofgem issued a final order on the 29th of October. Considering it's the 1st of November, I couldn't find any more up-to-date news, which is obviously fairly worrying both for G Energy, the company, but also customers of their company. So it'd be very interesting to see what is going to happen to those guys. So I believe they owe £673,000, but there's also interest to be paid after they failed to produce their renewables obligation certificates. So I suppose with this one, it's a watch this space and see how it continues for them. The other interesting part for me was another one. So that was the sort of four suppliers that had the original warning from Ofgem on the 1st of October. An interesting part for me was the latest updates on the renewables obligation is Breeze Energy. they it said Breeze Energy previously gave assurances that it would meet its renewables obligation by the 31st of October 2019, but it has since indicated it will not be in a position to make part of the payments by the deadline, which is obviously slightly late notice because this press release is the 31st of October. So I don't know if they gave notice on the 31st of October that they're unable to make their sort of payments. So that's a worrying sign for yet another supplier, and it puts into question the current supply landscape, which is a very fragmented and worrying landscape in all honesty, and I actually have a few questions about that. In some other news then, some other sort of interesting news that I found picked up and that I kept a sort of eye on is Lidl. It has announced plans for rapid charges at 300 stores as the supermarkets join the charging race, which is a very interesting sort of development. Both these budgets, supermarkets are quite interesting from a point of view that their growth is actually pretty stellar. I think, if I'm not mistaken, and I might have this wrong, but Lidl are rolling out, I think it might be 2 supermarkets a week, and I don't know if that's Lidl or Aldi, but I'm pretty sure it's Lidl, and so their growth is quite stellar. But I find it interesting that they're looking at actually installing these rapid chargers at 300 stores, which is obviously going to change the landscape drastically. So I can imagine that it's actually going to be quite convenient if you're an EV owner to do a shop and charge your car. And I can see that being quite a sort of attractive proposition and then quite an interesting sideline for a lot of these supermarkets. And it's going to be interesting to see what the sort of bigger play is. But I think it's very encouraging for the EV rollout. And more so, it's fascinating from a point of view to see how what that's going to do to sort of business model. So yeah, they're not the only one. I think Morrisons and Tesco's have also committed to rolling out the charging infrastructure at hundreds of stores around Britain. So it seems that it's going to be quite normal in the near future to do your shop and charge your car, which is anything to support the EV rollout is great news from my point of view. Other news. Let's have a look. Where were we? Yeah, so this is one that I just found quite interesting. Alstom are to test hydrogen trains in the Netherlands. So Alstom will test the world's first hydrogen-powered passenger train in the Netherlands as part of a pilot project. The rail transport company confirmed yesterday. It will be carried out on a track between Groningen and Leeuwarden. And the trains will go up to 140 kilometers an hour and will last about sort of 2 hours. I think it's very interesting because there's been a lot of speculation about hydrogen. I think it's got speculated to be a very good sort of use case. And I think it's very interesting to see what comes out of this pilot scheme and really one of the first, from what I know, of the hydrogen application in train transport. So I'll be keeping a close eye on that. It'll be very interesting to see what comes out of this research, really. I think it's being done with local operator Areva and energy company ENGIE. So very interesting. Obviously, ENGIE, a massive firm, have got a foothold everywhere, including in Britain. So I think it's really one of those watch this space and see what comes out of this. But who knows? In the near future, our trains might run on hydrogen. Very exciting. The other thing which sort of grabbed my eye, slightly sort of a little more lighthearted, but I think Eddy.net, the great green sort of website, has got a Net Zero November, which is their themed month for content, and I quite like it. I quite like the idea of having a Net Zero November. Maybe we should hashtag it, but I'll keep an eye out what comes out from Eddy.net. But I really like the idea of having a Net Zero themed month. So take a look at Eddy.net and have a look at what you think, and I'll see if I can update a little bit about what comes out in November on Net Zero November. And finally, one thing I published, and I thought it's good to sort of have a good quote to sort of ponder, really. Um, I saw an interview on Energy Live News with Adam Woodhull, who was the spokesperson for Extinction Rebellion, and they used his quote as the title of the article, and it said, "Capitalism as we know it is almost inevitably going to have to change." And I found that a very interesting quote. If we look at both the previous article on net zero November, and actually, more probably more pertinent, the government's commitment to net zero. What that means is that, yes, I believe he's right. Capitalism and corporate life will have to change to accommodate for net zero. Take aside Extinction Rebellion's projections. Just if we look at it from a policy point of view, if we've got a net zero commitment, it means both that capitalism and our corporate culture will have to change to account for that. So I thought that was very interesting. If you are interested, there's a whole interview with Adam Woodhull on the Energy Live News website. I found it very interesting. It's a very good interview. But yeah, I thought his quote was one to ponder about. I think that's it for me with energy news for this week. Let me know if I've missed anything, and yeah, let me know what you think of this format.